Today, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to record, edit, and publish a podcast. Coming up next on Tech Talk America. If you have ever fantasized about having your own show where you can talk about whatever subject you want and maybe even have a guest or a co-host on that show, then be sure to stay tuned because this just might be the motivational kick in the butt you need. Part of the reason why I'm making this video is because I myself have had a fascination with podcasting for quite some time. And over the course of this class, you are going to get to watch me launch my brand new podcast. Now, some people may ask, why a podcast? Why not a YouTube channel? Well, here's something to consider. Did you know that there are over 300 hours of content uploaded to YouTube every minute? By contrast, there are still less than 1 million podcasts total. That means that if there's some topic out there that you feel passionate about, your chances of standing out as an authority on that topic are that much greater if you do it as a podcast. And let's face it, not having to be on camera has its pluses too. I mean, you don't have to deal with expensive camera equipment, lighting, hair, makeup, costume, graphic design, and of course, editing. I am going to break down this tutorial into 4 chapters. We are going to start by talking briefly about hardware. Then I'm going to teach you the basics of audio editing using Garageband, as well as one other piece of software. After that, I'm going to walk you through how to set up hosting for your podcast. And finally, I'm going to show you how to publish your podcast so that it appears on all of the different podcasting platforms, of course, including the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, and Stitcher. You are about to get quite the education. If at any point you need to come back and rewatch a specific section of this video, please note that I've listed time codes to each chapter down below in the video description. Without any further ado, let's begin the class and start by talking about audio equipment. Now, one of the most appealing aspects of starting a podcast is that there's almost no startup cost. I mean, really the only equipment that you need is a computer, preferably a Mac, a microphone, and depending on the acoustics of where you are planning to record your podcast, you might want to consider just getting some curtains, which are a heck of a lot less expensive compared to expensive sound panels. And finally, the last thing that we'll need to hook you up with is a hosting service. When it comes to microphones, the one that I fell in love with and have recommended to everyone I know is the Apogee Hype Mic Plus. As you can see here, it is super compact, so it's easy to take with you on the go. It includes connections to USB Type-C, USB Type-A, and Lightning, which means yes, you can plug this directly into your iPhone or iPad. If you're thinking about recording a podcast on the go, maybe using Garageband, great way to do it. But the best feature of all can be summarized into 2 words: analog compression. Don't worry about what it means, just know it makes you sound awesome. Now, the Hype Mic comes with these little tripod legs so that you can easily sit it on a desk. That being said, usually when I'm using this microphone, what I do is I actually take the legs off. You can just easily unscrew them. And then if you pick up something like this is a $20 flexible arm, which you can get off Amazon. I'll put a link to this one down below in the video description. And that way you can have it easily in front of you and you can easily move it off to the side when you're done. On the bottom of the Hype Mic, you'll see that we have a micro USB port as well as a place to plug in your headphones. And trust me, you are going to want to use wired headphones for this type of setup. Do not use wireless. Personally, I use my Bose 700s, which I love, but of course, the quality of your headphones is not going to affect the quality of your podcast. There are 2 buttons on the front of the Hype Mic. When you press this top button, you'll see the little LEDs change, and that is basically a visual representation of how much of yourself that you will hear in your headphones. For me personally, I like to really crank it up, and then don't ask me why, but I usually like to keep one headphone off of one ear. For whatever reason, it helps me. The wheel below has 2 functions. You can rotate it, which will adjust the recording volume. Green indicates that your audio levels are good. Yellow means they're still okay, but approaching the upper range. And red is, huh? So simply rotating this wheel will adjust your audio levels, and when you're in an app like GarageBand, you'll see those levels change in the app as well. When you press in on this wheel, that is how you can access the different compression modes. Now for me personally, I really like the second setting, but it's not a bad idea to play with all 3 and just see which one best suits your voice. At this point, let's start to talk about software, and specifically GarageBand. What I love about GarageBand is that it's free, it's easy to learn, and you can use it on any Mac, iPhone, or iPad. So here's the deal. GarageBand is normally used for creating music. And when I was putting together this tutorial video, I realized that I could approach this one of two ways. I could either walk you through all of the settings that you need to change in order to get things perfect, or I could just do all of the work for you and just give you a project file that already has the correct settings. Now, if you haven't hit that thumbs up like button yet, this is your subtle hint to do so. Because if you go into the description of this video, you will find a link to a brand new Garageband project that I have made available to the public. So if you need to, go ahead and hit the pause button, download that file, and what I would recommend you do right off the bat is duplicate it, because that way you can use it in the future as a template. So anytime you need to create a new episode of your podcast, just duplicate that file and it's good to go. And just to clarify, that file is going to remain free to the public. I care about education. I want to inspire people to try new things and be creative. So that is a gift from me. That being said, if you would like to help support me, help support this channel, contributions through Venmo or PayPal are very much appreciated. At this point, I'm going to teach you the basics of editing audio using GarageBand. So if you're following along at home, I invite you to open up that project and let's switch to my Mac. As you can see here, when you open up my project file, you'll see a different track for each of the typical elements you'll find in a podcast. So for example, here at the top, we have a track for where you can load your podcast opening music. Now, obviously, there is no rule that says you need to have music when your show opens, so please know if there are any tracks here that you do not need, you can remove them by clicking on them and pressing Command-Delete on your keyboard. If you do plan to use music in the opening, what I would recommend you do is bring it here into this track, which I'll show you how to do momentarily, then go to File, Save As, and save it somewhere inside of iCloud Drive. That way, anytime you need to create a new episode of your podcast, all you need to do is duplicate that file. And when you go to open it, your intro music will be preloaded, all of your tracks will be named correctly, and believe it or not, even the settings for GarageBand are stored inside this file. So even if you were to open that file on someone else's computer, all of the settings will sync with the project. Good job on that, Apple. And part of the reason why I'm recommending that you save this file to iCloud Drive is so that if you want to record a podcast using your iPhone or iPad, you can. And like I said, that is a major reason why I think the Apogee Hype Mic is such a great solution, because it includes all of the cables so that you can easily switch between any of your Apple devices. As you can see here, the next two tracks are for the host and co-host. Our next track is for sound effects, which once again, you may or may not need. Then we have a track for music. This next track is for pre-recorded segments, which could include a sponsored message or an interview conducted online. At this point, I'm going to grab my intro music from the downloads folder and I'm going to drop it into this space. And then I'll drag it just a little bit to the left so that it's at the beginning of the project. One thing I want to make clear is that anytime you bring files into your project, GarageBand creates a copy of that file to live inside the project file. This track, which is the track that I'm going to be using to open my new podcast, was composed by my good friend Audie Goldstein. I've used Audie's music in my Droning Provincetown videos for years. By the way, if you've never seen those videos, you can see my now over 100 productions at droningprovincetown.com. And even if you've never seen those videos, I can almost guarantee that you've heard his music without knowing it. His work has been used in commercials for HP, Nintendo, Microsoft, NASA, as well as campaign commercials for Clinton and Obama. How's that for a resume? If you'd ever like to license one of his songs, you can use promo code, and this was totally his idea, CoxRocks20 to save 20%. His website, by the way, is agsoundtracks.com. I'm going to be teaching you a few shortcut keys, and to help make it easier, you'll find a list of the most important ones in the video description. If you look here at the side of each track, you'll see a few different icons. This first icon is for muting or unmuting a track. You can also accomplish this by clicking on the track and then tapping the M key on your keyboard. This next icon is for solo mode, and when you press it, it will automatically mute every other track. This icon right here is for input monitoring. When you enable this feature, you will hear that track play in your headphones. Some people like to enable input monitoring for their own track, while other people find it distracting. For me personally, I found that hearing myself in my own headphones helps me give a better vocal performance, mostly because it forces me to focus on my pronunciation. This slider here is for the volume of the individual track that you have selected. So for example, if you're interviewing someone and they are consistently quiet when they speak, by increasing their track volume, it should help balance that out. There are technically two other volume controls, and I know a lot of people can find this confusing, so I'm going to try my best to explain this. At the very top of Garageband, we have your master volume. This will affect the total volume of every track. The general rule of thumb is you want to be able to play the entire project without having it ever dip into the red, which will ultimately result in distortion when played back by the listener. The other volume control is the recording volume, which you'll find down here in the Smart Controls. By the way, if you don't see that lower panel, just look for this button up here at the top. That's how you can hide or reveal it. When it comes to setting your recording volume, here's what I recommend you do. Temporarily enable this feature for automatic level control. Then just start to tell a short story that has a little bit of emotion in it. The problem with having people traditionally count to 10 is it does not accurately mimic the normal fluctuations in volume in your voice. As you speak, you'll see the level control adjust itself, and after you have a good sample, just uncheck that option. At this point, I'm going to teach you a few simple editing techniques, so let me quickly record an intro just so that we have something to play with. Hello everyone, and welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking all about how to create a podcast. So if you've ever fantasized about having your own show, be sure to stay tuned, because today I'm going to teach you how to turn that dream into a reality. I think you're going to like this class. Stay tuned. Now that we've got that recorded, let's go over trimming. If we go back to the beginning of that clip, well, I realize you probably couldn't hear it as I was recording it. This little spike right here is me coughing. So let's now trim that out. If you use your cursor, you can grab either the beginning or the end of a clip, and you can drag it back to remove any unwanted audio. The next technique that we're going to cover is creating a split or cut. Let's say I want to remove the sentence where I said, "I think you're going to like this class." To do that, we're going to grab this long white line, which is known as the playhead, and we're going to place it just before I say that sentence. Now, to create a split, just press Command and the letter T as in Tom to create a cut. Now we can go to the end of that phrase and do the same thing. At this point, I'll just select the middle segment, then tap the delete key on my keyboard to remove it, and to close the gap, I'll just drag this segment back. Audio ducking is when you need to temporarily lower or duck the volume levels of a specific part of a clip. So for example, your opening music is going to probably come in at normal volume, but we need to duck the audio when your main track comes in. The first step is to show the automation, which you can do by simply tapping the A key on your keyboard. The next step is you may need to click on the track in order to reveal this yellow line. That line represents the volume levels of the track. To create a duck, we'll end up adding keyframes to indicate when the volume change starts and where it ends. To do this, just click on the yellow line where you want your transition to start, then you can advance a few frames out and click again. Now all I need to do is drag this second keyframe down to create that transition. Anytime you want to play or pause your track, you can just simply tap the spacebar. I'd argue that the most common problem that people encounter in GarageBand is accidentally enabling the loop feature. This can happen when you click and drag in this top bar. Now if I tap the spacebar to play this project, you'll see that it just keeps repeating the same segment over and over again. If this ever happens to you, the one key that you can tap to clear this is the C key. Just think C for clear. One advanced trick I wanted to throw into this class is how to use a feature called a noise gate to remove unwanted background noise. This technique is perfect for less than perfect recording conditions. So for example, I have an air conditioner in the room where I'm recording this voiceover right now. So let me just turn that up so that you can really hear it. There you go. And what I'm going to do is record 5 to 10 seconds of silence so that all you can hear is that air conditioner. Then I'm going to record a few seconds of me speaking at a normal volume. Here we go. Hello friends, I'm your Vitamita Vegemin guy. Are you tired, run down, listless? Do you poop out at parties? Are you unpopular? The answer to all of your problems is in this tiny bottle. And points, by the way, to those of you who followed that reference. So now I'm going to go back to the beginning of that track where we can only hear the air conditioner, and I'm going to use the loop feature by clicking and dragging here at the top so that it plays that segment over and over. Let's take a listen. You hear that? So now let's turn on the noise gate, which is down here in the smart controls. And then we're going to use this slider right here to adjust how much of a noise gate to enable before we can no longer hear the air conditioner. Now the ultimate test for this is to turn off the looping feature and to make sure that it isn't clipping the actual audio. So to give you an example of what not to do, let's listen to how I sound with the noise gate set too high. Hello friends, I'm your Vitamita Veg. Are you tired, run down, listless? You get the idea. At this point, I would like to introduce you to a solution which is perfect for anyone who wants to conduct an interview over the internet. Zencastr is super user-friendly, inexpensive, and runs entirely through your web browser. I have to tell you, in doing my research for this class, there are a lot of different ways that one can record an interview over an internet connection. But the problem with the vast majority of those solutions is that they completely fail when it comes to user friendliness. When you're interviewing someone, they're giving you their time. Trust me, you want a solution that makes them both sound great and doesn't take a computer science degree to use. When you're creating a new podcast, there are a few things that you're going to need ahead of time. Of course, including the title to your podcast, a well-written description that's around a paragraph long, a 3000 by 3000 pixel cover image, which we will discuss later on, and your channel trailer. A channel trailer is typically between 1 and 2 minutes long, and it serves a few different purposes. For one, it gives you the opportunity to give your audience a preview of what they can expect in future episodes. The other reason that you're going to want to make sure that your first episode is a trailer is so that you can claim the name of your show, and also so that you can start to submit it to the different podcasting platforms. So we're now going to start to talk about hosting and how to publish your podcast so that it appears in all of those different platforms. Now, when it comes to choosing a host, the big options out there are Podbean, Buzzsprout, Lisbon, and Blueberry. Now, for me personally, I decided to go with Podbean because they're really easy to use. They've been around forever. They provide great analytics, and they're pretty inexpensive. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I did decide to become an affiliate of Podbean, but that being said, I did not make that decision until I personally decided to go with them. So, if you decide that this is a good solution for you, and if you also want to help support my channel, you can get a free month of hosting by going to podbean.com/techtalk. When you log into Podbean, you'll need to submit some basic information about your podcast. As you can see here, you can list your podcast in up to 3 categories. Just be aware that the Apple Podcast app only recognizes the first one. When it comes to designing the cover image for your podcast, keep in mind that listeners will be tuning in from a wide variety of devices, so you'll want your cover image to look just as good as a thumbnail as it does when played on a large screen. If we switch over to feed settings, you'll see a few more pieces of information that we need to provide, including whether or not your podcast is going to contain explicit content. You can choose whether or not to list your podcast as episodic or serial, and a few other settings. If we click on where it says View RSS Feed here at the top, that will reveal the URL that we need to copy in order to direct our feed to the various podcasting platforms. I'm now going to go into the dashboard page of Podbean and click here at the top where it says Go to Publish. I'll now type up a very brief description and upload my channel trailer. At this point, I'm going to submit my RSS feed to iTunes Connect so that it can start to appear in the Apple Podcast app. All you need to do is go to itunesconnect.apple.com and sign in with your Apple ID. Please note, if you're launching your podcast as a business, you might want to consider creating a brand new Apple ID for this process rather than using your existing Apple ID. From here, you'll just need to go into Podcast Connect and paste the link from your RSS feed into this space. Provided that everything checks out, you can now submit your podcast for approval. The approval process can take as long as a week, but I have to tell you, after I submitted mine, I received an approval in under 24 hours. And don't think for a second that yours truly gets any kind of special treatment. When it comes to submitting your RSS feed to all of the other podcasting services, I've made your life a little bit easier by including direct links to all of those services down below in the video description. I think you'll find that the process is actually very easy. I had my podcast submitted to all of the major platforms in under 5 minutes. Before we go, I just wanted to take a quick moment to say that I sincerely hope that this video inspires you to get out there, to be creative, and to try creating your own podcast. It can be a very rewarding opportunity, and what's great about it is that you maintain 100% creative control. I've been doing my YouTube channel now for 8 years, and I can honestly say, if this was on a major network, there is no way that I would have total control over the final product. And that is one of the best parts about making YouTube videos, and that is one of the best aspects of having a podcast. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to hit that little thumbs up like button. I love it when you leave me well-constructed feedback. It helps me as a teacher so that I can do a better job in the future. And of course, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and now my podcast as well. This is David A. Cox with Tech Talk America. Class dismissed.